Hello everybody, welcome back to the table. What we're going to do today is a modified scenario 1 from the Long Road Tactics book. And we're not going to play the entire scenario. What happened was, had it set up and my cats wanted to play, and they are, I'll say politely, a little more aggressive in their play style than I tend to be, and they are less likely to actually roll dice to determine combat outcomes. And so what I did was, after I found the combatants, I put them back, but these are not the official start positions of the forces. Also, after the game did have, the scenario has a B-52 strike at the beginning, in which there's a chance that some units could get reduced or disrupted. And I said, well, I could just leave off some of those pieces as pre-game casualties, but I thought, well, I'll just put everything back. I really, at some point, I just was like, I really don't feel like looking and putting everything back the way it should be. So what we have here is an alternative start to scenario 1. And we're just going to play through kind of a couple sample turns to give you an idea of how the game plays. I thoroughly enjoy the game, but I know that there are some folks that might be new to this system, don't know much about it. Maybe you do know much about it, and this isn't your style of game. But either way, thanks for tuning in for a few minutes. All right, so what I'm going to do is start with a roll-off. I figured what I would do is, I've got from other games some red and different colored die tin, and I thought thematically this might be for green for the Americans, red for the Soviet player, and I think I've got a gray or a black tin-sided die at some point, so when the Fatherland expansions I could use that. Again, just thematic, you don't need it, but that way if I roll on camera, sometimes it's you can just at a glance tell who's what. So we have here an initiative for the Americans. There are some additional initiative rules, like if there's a tie, then the initiative goes to the player who didn't have it. You can also spend your focus markers on initiative, which we'll talk about aid and focus as we go along. And basically what we have here is not the entire map. I can put this up a little bit more and you can see quite a bit of the map, but we do have an assortment of infantry waiting to load into their BMPs, some BMP-2s. We have T-80s. Here's an infantry unit supporting the T-80. They really don't have a rule for, I know some games, if you attack with infantry from woods and into tank units and things, there's bonuses and whatnot. There's really not a whole lot of that, but just the way the pieces ended up. There's an infantry there with a tank unit, a couple T-80s here. Now for this first scenario is definitely sending kind of the cream of the crop of the Soviets into the defending American units. So he got bumped, I'll just stick him there. And on the American side we do have an assortment of Abrams and the infantry units. Some of these infantry units are sitting on top of their 113, so they can also be transported. And back here's a couple TOW missile units. Again, some infantry units on the way back that you can't see that are waiting to come forward. I thought I had a couple of Bradleys on here. Nope, no Bradleys, but a lot of tanks. Not as many tanks as the Soviet player. Soviet player definitely ended up with a lot of stuff. Yeah. Oh yeah, no. There's a Bradley, but it was going to be a reinforcement. So I've got a Bradley. That's going to carry a recon unit. Alright, well, it is what it is. They might not hit the board. Now the scenario also had Soviets were going to get a lot more reinforcements on turn 1, and I think the Americans got some reinforcements on turn 2. But again, just for kind of gameplay purposes, we'll walk through what we have here on the board. Alright, which means we should see some action fairly early here in this middle section. Hopefully. Alright, well the Americans will go first. I've got a game track over here on the side. I figured you don't really need that on camera. That's just showing I have a marker that says Americans got turn 1. Now there is a sequence of play. I'm just going to do the sequence of play right off the chart. It's not complicated. So first you determine initiative, which we did. We have Americans. Then we would draw action cards. Now Kursk had several like Niet and 9 type cards where you could cancel an action an opponent did. I went through here. I can only find one such card. It was on the Soviet player. There was a Niet card, but I could not find any card for the Allies that let you cancel the card that your opponent just played. So I left that singular Niet card in there. And I normally take those out on a solo play because once I have it in hand, it's hard against yourself to tactically decide like, well, would I play that now? And it ended up just simply, oh, okay, I've got a Niet, I'm going to play the card regardless of what the other person's playing, So if I just take those out, then we're just left with cards in our hand. Now this scenario says that each player starts with 0 cards, and on the first turn they grab 1, and then each subsequent turn they get 2. So I'm just going to draw 1 right now for each. So I'll say Soviet card goes over here. They got for the motherland, raise the morale of all Warsaw Pact units by 1 for the current turn, and they can play that during the rally step. Well, that's out of the light, but trust me, that's what it is. And then the ally, I'm used to saying allies. It's not necessarily World War II, but I'll have to say NATO. They get to move out, play during the fire. So instead of firing, move 2 units. That could be useful. I'm just going to set those off to the side at the top of the board. And again, normally when I solo play, I totally forget that I have cards. So, if I bring a card into play, cool. And when I hit the rally phase, I probably will hold on to this for the motherland, because you could raise morale for the whole turn. That way, during actual combat, there's a chance that will improve their ability to make their save rolls. However, not sure how much combat will happen now. So this might be a good one to play after we've had a round of shooting, and that will help them rally some units back, and then the rest of the turn help them with combat results. The moving 2 units during the firing step, that might be cool if I have some units not within range to fire, so we'll see how that goes. Alright, then we go from that to the rally phase. Currently nothing is disrupted, so we'll just kind of hold on to that. Then there's the fire phase. So fire phase, we'll start with the initiative player, and what they do with firing is it's alternating. So I'll pick a unit that could shoot, and then the opponent would pick one, and what we'll do is we've got markers, which I had the marker sheet out. I probably put it away as I was trying to recover from, here we go, I think some of these will work. Yeah, the disrupted fire. So what we'll do is, let's look here. I don't have my measuring. I have a little pull cord. I think that was another victim of the catpocalypse. So what we'll do is just kind of eyeball. I do have some hills here. This guy is down here between these 2 hill areas. So really the only unit he can see effectively is this T-80 out here. So I think for the first shot of the game, this Abrams, what's on here? Okay, that's a 113. Not much they can do. So this Abrams is going to take a shot up here to this T-80. So what I'll do is count hexes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now this combat value, I think what I can do is zoom in a little bit so we can focus on just those units primarily. Let's see here. I was going to pause the camera, but I think you all can see that if I just kind of do this for a moment. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're going to focus right here for the moment. Now he's got a red background on the Abrams, and red shows that normal range is 8. So it's greater than 4, less than 8. So I'm on the normal range. So there's no shift in the fire results table. So what I do then is take the firepower of 14, subtract the defense value of 8. That starts me off on a 6. I didn't move. These units can shoot and move, and they have this gold burst, which gives them a benefit when moving and shooting. But we didn't move, so I really don't see any other modifier. Now, if I was looking at the terrain, but this T-80 is in the open on a road, so it's just going to be a nice clear shot. So again, I would start on the 6th column. I'm going to roll a die. Now, the Abrams has a -1 on its attack score. So that means when I attack, I'm going to subtract 1 from this roll. That's good, because you want to roll low. So I rolled a 2. Subtract 1 is a 1. So on the 6th column, right here, 1, run my finger across to the 6, it says 5. So that's 5 potential hits. Now, the Soviet player then has a chance to save. They get to roll a die 10 for each of those potential hits, and every score of a 3 is a save. Now, if I had played that morale card earlier, the Soviet player would be at a 4. So that's the base morale for the game. Scenarios might modify that. So this makes it, that was a 2. So what that means is, sadly for the Soviet player, the first hit's a disruption, second hit is a reduction, and a unit that's reduced, that's like already disrupted and reduced, that gets hit again, is eliminated, and then they get a wreck marker. So this unit goes away, and I did have, I thought this had some wreck markers on it. Let me double check here. I was trying to keep everything clean and tidy. I don't have everything. Here's a wreck marker. We'll just go with that. Well, there we go. So T-80, first casualty of the game. It's that simple. Then we're going to mark the Abrams with a fired. So I've got a fired marker right here, just on the back side of the disrupted. So fired. And that's it. Now the Soviet player has to decide what they would like to do. Now, I'm looking here at this T-80 unit, and I believe, if I don't have my straight line, these hills are here, but I believe going from like this center dot to this center dot, this seems like it would be a legitimate shot as well. So we'll go ahead with this T-80. We'll go ahead and fire into this Abrams unit. I almost wish that these status markers were a little bit smaller so I could see the numbers, but then that would be so tiny they'd get lost. So I know some people use, and I might get it now that I think about it, get these little clear plastic like bingo markers. My kid has a bingo game that uses these little clear plastic chips that I could just stick, so it'd be red for fired, and I could look through and see the numbers without having to pull the marker off all the time. Sorry, has nothing to do with the game, just a thought I had. Alright, so I'm going to go firepower of 12, subtract 8, so they're starting on a column of 4 versus the Abrams 6. Also, we have to look at the range band. So they have a gold range band, which means their short range is 2 and their normal range is 5. So this is just on the outside of normal range. So again, there's no range penalty or bonus for shooting. So they're going to start on 4. Now the Abrams, on their armor, they have a +1. So that means the Soviet player is going to roll their die 10 and add 1 to that, and we'll see then what kind of damage they have on that 4 column. So that's a 2 plus 1 is a 3. That's still a really good roll. That doesn't change the column. It's 2 to 3. We just come across to the 4, and they're gonna. The Abrams team has to roll 3 die 10 to see if they suffer any kind of real damage. So we'll grab the dice tower. Well, one fell in. And the Americans save on a 4. And so they actually took 2 hits. So that 4 would come out. This was a 9, I think. So that's 2 hits. Wow, not bad. So what we'll do is, first I'm going to grab a fired marker for the Soviet player. Then I'm going to grab a disrupted. And because that was 2 hits, first hit is disrupted, second hit is reduced. So we flip the Abrams to its reduced side, which slightly changes the combat modifiers, but not by much. I think it's still pretty deadly. It's not as deadly, but we'll put disrupted and fired. Alright, perfect. Then it would come back to the American player. Well, the American player has an Abrams tank right here, so we'll go ahead and shoot back. Well, I think I would want to shoot at something. Here we go. This has a T-80 in here, so inside that town, but oh, what kind of shift is that? So if I'm looking here at a town, there's the cost, fire combat. I think 2-1. 2 is if it's infantry. I think the first number is infantry. The second number there is the armored units, if I remember right. So armor gets a 1 column shift for being in a town. Well, the reason I might go for that is because, you know, gaming the game, they haven't fired yet. So if I could put some casualties on that T-80, then, you know, lucky us, it might not want to shoot. Now with Kursk, they had a rule where when you fired into a hex that had multiple units, you got to split the hits evenly among the units in there, and there was some feedback that didn't seem very realistic, especially like in a modern age with all your optics and whatnot. You should be able to pick out targets, and so in here when you shoot into a hex that has multiple targets, you can pick which one you're shooting at. So unless I've totally brain has melted down on that and I've read that wrong, but that's how my understanding, and that makes sense to me. So the Abrams unit is specifically taking aim at some tanks that are hiding in the buildings. So that's what we'll go with. I'm going to put the tanks on top so I can look at their values. So again, 14 minus 8 is a 6. Now normally you assign all of your positive modifiers for combat first. I don't have a positive modifier for combat. No additional units shooting with that or anything. So I'm just going to go straight 6 column minus 1 column shift because they are in a city unit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We know that's within normal range of the Abrams. So I make that 1 column shift from a 6 to a 4. I roll my die 10. Oof, I subtract 1 to make that an 8 because I have a minus 1 on the combat. And 8 on the 4 is no effect. So the building pretty much just absorbed all those hits. Okay, well, good for them. Alright, let's grab another fired marker here. Got it. Oh, on the back of the ECM. Here we go. Fired. Alright, then we look at the Soviet player. I think the Soviet player is going to do, well, I think this hill blocks line of sight to here. I think if I drew a string, it's going to cut through this hill, so I won't be able to shoot at the dragon team. And the dragon team, in kind, can't shoot into that city hex. I think it's hitting this hill. They're on the top of a hill in woods here, but I think this hill is going to block the line of sight. So what we'll do is have this T-80 go ahead and shoot into this Abrams unit. Alright, well we know it's a range of 5. That's normal range there for the T-80. So they have a firepower of 12. The Abrams has a defense of 6. So that's already starting on the 4 column. No other shifts because the Abrams is in an open unit itself, so they will roll. Now, they have to add +1 to that because the Abrams has a +1 defensive modifier. That's still amazingly good. So a 2 on the 4, that's still only 3. That's Soviets are looking pretty good right out the gate here as they rush into West Germany. Okay, well that's a save, and the 0 is a 0, so that's 2 saves, and that's a fail, so that's a disruption. So we'll grab another disrupted marker. They fired and disrupted. I put the fired on top, 1 to let me know that that unit's activated, and then 2, it's fire markers and move markers. They pretty much come off automatically at the end of a turn, but you have to rally to see if you get rid of the disrupted. So I just leave the fired on top. Alright, so that was the Soviet player. Oh, I got to put a fired on that one, just so I don't forget. I shouldn't forget, but it's amazing what I forget. So they fired. Alright, then the Americans are looking. I have an Abrams unit down here off the map, so we focused up here. Let's see what we have down here a little ways. There's not a whole lot here, but I do have some tank units. I have an Abrams, 2 Abrams here, and 1 Abrams here on a, it looks like it's up on a little hilltop. There's a little bit of a town there, and he, if I remember, there's something about like blind spots. So this hill, like I can't see here immediately, but once you get out to a certain distance, you can kind of see down. At some point, there's too much hill, and you can't really see down. You know, but hills are supposed to be kind of sloping. So without digging out the rule book to look at the line of sight exactly, which I should pull out the rule book, but I have that put away somewhere. Again, this was like I was trying to clean up after the catpocalypse and wanted to play, and now I've misplaced a couple things. So that would normally be very important in the rule book. So just off of my experience from other games, I've played other games where if you have 2 blocking, then if you like double it out, it would take, like if this is two hexes of hill, then I would have 4 hexes of blind spot, and then I could see past. Because again, hills are gently sloping. This isn't necessarily like a mountain per se, but I might be at the crest of the hill kind of looking down, and so at a certain point I can see things past the hill. So that's kind of what I'll do here if I was to shoot from the, well, actually he's here on the mountain, so I have 1 hex here of hill, give me 2 shadow spots, and then the rest of this is open to him. But I've got Abrams here. Now I happen to have 2 Abrams stacked, and you can, with multiple vehicles, if you have them adjacent or in the same hex, they can actually fire at the same target. And then if it's a good standing tank, it would be 2 positive column shifts to the right. If it was not disrupted, but if it was reduced, it would contribute 1 positive column modifier shift to the right. So we have to look and see what is out here that looks dangerous. Because I could either have them fire, I don't have to have them fire together, but if I really, really wanted to kill a BMP-2 or this T-80 out here, I might want to do that. Town would be a little bit of blocking. Now if I was on the hilltop looking down, then I would say I might be able to see over the town, but I would do the same thing. So this is a blocking terrain, so that would give me 2 shadow hexes. But I am looking down. Yeah, we won't shoot over the hilltop here. I think what we'll do with this guy is shoot the BMP. So we have our 14 firepower versus our 4 defense. That's on the column of 10. That's a huge. So 1, 2, well, yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hexes away. That's within the normal range of an Abrams. So I'm going to roll the die. I don't have any other column shifts, and I'm going to add or subtract 1 because of the Abrams modifier. So that's a 1. I think that might just be a dead vehicle. 1 on the 10 column. Oh, it just says 7. 7 potential hits. Well, the game only comes with 6 die 10, and the Soviet player has a save of 3. This probably might die just on this first. Well, maybe not. We have 1 save, 2 save, 3 save. Now, I do get 1 more die roll, which is also a save. But it fails 3. So this would go from disrupted to disrupted and reduced, and then finally the third hit would eliminate it. So that one's gone. And since that is an armored vehicle, I'm going to grab another rec marker. I have another rec marker here. I had a rec marker. Let's see, where did I put the rec? Here's one. So we'll replace that with a rec. Oh no. Now, I recently was playing a game, Urban Operations, with a friend of mine, and they have a rule that when you put a rec marker on the board, that every turn you roll a die, and on a certain result, there's another explosion in that hex. I'm thinking of doing something similar, because that's supposed to simulate, the burn off, ammunition exploding, things like that. So normally when you move a unit into like a wreck hex, they do get some defense from that because you're hiding behind these dead vehicles. But what I'm thinking of doing is, as a house rule, is if you're in there, that's cool, you get your defensive bonus, but during the rally phase, when you have units in the same wreck hex, you're going to roll a die. And I was thinking they have these critical hit lines, so it would be a 0 or a 1. So if you roll a 0 or a 1, I'm thinking that you get hit, although I don't know how strong of a hit I would do that to see if you get disrupted. Or it's just if you roll a 1 or a 0, not how many hits you take. I think what I'll do is just say if you roll a 1 or a 0, then the unit gets disrupted because you were next to vehicles that had a cook-off on ammunition. It was just a thought. I thought it was kind of fun, something to experiment with, because at some point a person might say, but Eddie, vehicles don't burn forever. Well, that's true, which is why on the die roll there's a pretty low probability of that cooking off and hurting you when you're there. So little optional rule thought. Okay, so we've destroyed that wreck. So it would go back to the Soviet player. I don't know if there's anything I do want to hit. Again, I got these T-80 tanks over here. He's in the open. They could probably shoot. I think these hills block from here to here. And I don't think he can shoot up onto this hill because it's blocking here and he's back. And if you were to do that, like, shadow, well, I don't think so. I don't think he can shoot up here. If he was here, he could, but I think because he's too back. Plus, he's in the town hex. He'd be hard to hit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 for gold. That's at the limit of his long range. So that would bring his firepower from a base of 4, 2 shifts to the left on the 0. There's still a potential to hit, but there'd be 1 more shift because he's in a town. He's on the -2. I don't think that's a very good shot if you were to allow that. I mean, if I'm allowing him to shoot down, he should be able to shoot up because he's looking up the hill. And I think there's also a shift for shooting up a hill as well, because now you're kind of going against the whole, not the whole tank. So I think what we'll do is we'll just skip that. We'll just say no. So I'm not going to fire. I don't think I have anything else that I want to fire. The dragon here in the woods, probably, you know what? I take it back. The dragon missile system is going to go ahead and fire here at that advancing T-80. They are gold. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That does put him out of range for normal range. That puts him at long range. So that's going to be 2 shifts to the left for long range. Let's do it. He doesn't have advanced targeting. So he's got firepower of 8. The T80. Oh, here, I gotta shift up. I totally forgot to move that. Let's come back. Make sure you can see where the action is. Alright, wobbly cam. Yeah, so we'll take 8. 8. So that's not good either. We'll do it though. It's a free attack. So we'll say that's going to be a 0, difference of 0, and it is long range. That's 2 column shifts, so that's not good. That puts us on the -4. Plus, if I roll 6, 7, or 8, that gives him a out of missiles. So he gets to do his attack, but then he gets slapped with an out of missile marker, and he has to see if he can reload it. Yeah, why not? Let's do it. There's no die roll modifiers, so it's just a straight die roll on the, where did we say we were? The -4 column, 2 shifts for range. Yeah, let's do it. A 2, hey! So a 2 on the 4, it wasn't going to happen unless I rolled a 0. So a 2 on that -4 column is a no hit. So good effort, guys. So we'll mark him with fired. Let's see here, fired. Yeah, let's call that good for the moment there. So back to Soviet player. Soviet player says, I don't have anything I want to fire at the moment. We have woods blocking here, so we're going to have to push up so we can get into protected positions to fire. So that's what we'll do. We'll go to the move. So after you fire comes the movement phase. Now with the movement phase, one player will move everything that doesn't have marked, like an eligible unit, and then the other player will move everything. So what I'll do is I'll just bump the camera up here a little bit so you can see a little more of the action. And this middle number is how many movement points you have on the counter, which now that I've zoomed out you can't see. But I am going to move some tow units up. Crossing a river, you can't fire tow missiles across water. So can we go across? It's not blocking. Scenario defined. I would have to look and see if the scenario mentioned river crossing. Let's see real quick here. Scenario. Anything about crossing water? So typically it's a no. Now if I had engineering units, I could maybe bridge and cross the river. So those guys are not in a good spot. I do have a bridge here. So movement through woods, what's that going to be? 2 for vehicle units. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Cross the road, cross the bridge. I don't think the bridge incurs anything. That just lets you cross water. Just cross. And the road itself is a 1, 1. So we'll say we cross the bridge. That's my 5 movement points. So we'll work on that. Now normally you would put everything with a move, but that's a lot of markers to put out here on the last bit because I'm just going to have to pull them back up here in a moment, which could be important, but I'm going to try my best to remember what's moved. And I'm not going to move everything because again we're going to maybe just play 2 turns to give you a feel for the flow of the game without all the fancy helicopters and stuff like that, but just a basic ground warfare. 1, 2, 3, 4. I could move in here and then those 2 units will stack. You can put 2 in, so like an infantry and an armored unit, or 2 armored units, 2 infantry units. But if you are carrying infantry, infantry don't count against stacking. So for now we'll just put two tow missile carriers there. Then we have dismounted infantry. They have a movement of 1. Not on a road, so I'm not sure we can move into the town. Yeah, that's a city. City takes 2, so I'd have to be on the road. So again, they're not positioned very well. So we're going to take our 1 movement point, and we're going to move this mortar unit down and tow. And if we can get them onto the roads, then they can travel in through the city just fine, but they're not going to do very good. trying to get in there otherwise. I think there's a minimum hex limit. You could move one, but I don't like to go off my memory, and I don't want to look up the rule right now, so we'll just skirt the city, hit the roads, and then come in. Because you would think that at some point I might want to move the missiles up into this woods, and normally they can't, but if I have a minimum move, as long as it's not prohibited, I think I can move one hex. So that way I can at least move up infantry and whatnot with low move rates. Although I don't know if I would want to fire mortars or tows from inside of the forest. You can, as ambush positions, right? Should be able to. Okay, oh, that's right. Did they fire? You know, I totally forgot. I had all these Abrams units that we talked about that could do something, but I'm going to move them. Okay, so we've moved those, Infantry, they're kind of weak, so I'm actually going to pull him back into the woods. Use all his movement. Well, actually what you should do, because when the infantry's on top, they're going to load. And that means the carrier gets half its movement round up, so that's 3. He's just going to move back into the woods. And he's got troops, because out in the open is not a good spot for infantry, ever. These Abrams are going to come down to push their attack a little bit. 1. Let's stay here on the hill, because that'll give him a little bit of a bonus, because people got to shoot up at him. And these folks, where do they want to go? I think they want to be right. We'll actually just move them here, because I want to be able to shoot around the hill to get at some of this stuff coming in. I think the Soviets are going to push down a little bit, so we're going to protect this area here. And that's got 2 M113s by themselves for some reason. Oh, that's because that's how I randomly stacked them after catpocalypse. Okay, we'll say the American players move what they want to move. That's it. They're fine. They're happy. They got tanks here. And then the Soviet player says, yeah, we're coming for you, Uncle Sam. So this is infantry not loaded onto a BMP. We're going to put them up. I think what we'll do is move into the wreck, like so. So they get a little bit of protection, and then they can fire their missiles out at the American armor. Infantry will stay here guarding that part of the town. Infantry will move down to help guard this part of the town. 1, 2. So they got a little protection, not in the open. They'll stay. This is 2 T-80s. With the range, 1, 2, 3, 4. They're going to move up a little bit. Now there are some rules in here for like run and gun, where you could, instead of waiting for the movement phase to move stuff, you could have done like firing and then move. There's some rules for that later, so if you want to decide to shoot and then scoot kind of a thing, you can. But for now we're just moving and then firing. But I'm going to move these folks. 1, 2. They're thinking about that minimum range they need to be at normal. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So they moved up just enough so they can take advantage of their firing. Yeah, the Abrams definitely have a lot more range. So like if this was reversed, if the Soviets had advantage, I could almost, depending on the shooting, back out 1 hex to put them at long range. So you know, keep your adversary at reach. Don't let them get close. Keep advantage of your longer firing range. But the Soviets are pushing up so they can, you know, make up for their lack of firing range. So 5 hexes away is still normal range for them, so they'll be fine. And then we'll have this T-80 come up. 1 city was 2, we said. 2. And yeah, they'll fire from the city, get some protection there. BMPs would push up. Well, they got 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. They got long range. Purple's pretty good range if I remember right. So we'll make a firing line here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. So this set of Abrams might be in trouble. And then if we just move some folks up as reinforcements up a hill into woods, we'll say that's like 3 movement points. 4 coming down the hill. We'll leave that. These guys are not in a good spot either. Driving through the woods, they can do it at 2 each. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And these guys, here's some tanks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we'll move them up here. BMP, here's infantry waiting to load. We'll just move this one BMP up here. So it's 1, 2, 3. Nothing extra for a wreck, but he's in a wreck. Nothing he can really see or shoot at the moment. And we'll call that good. We'll just say, hey, we moved up. All right, then we would move into the close assault phase. Close assault happens when you are next to a unit, and then if you're an eligible unit, so if you haven't been like marked fired, so typically you got to move up to assault, but you might have to wait a turn to assault. But anyway, you would be here at the close assault. Nobody is close enough to do that yet. Then we have the housekeeping phase, which is pretty much going to be picking up all these markers, not the disrupted, but just all the fired and moved markers. I didn't put any moved down again because I knew I was moving a whole bunch. But if I was going to move, yeah, so you would want to move, just mark everything with move. But I was like, nah. Yeah, so we'll take those off. Well, and then there's opportunity fire. I didn't feel like opportunity fire. I guess I could have opportunity fired with these Abrams down here, but I thought I would just wait. But with opportunity fire, you can mark them with opportunity fire, then at the end of the turn, those counters would come off. So, yeah, I could have opportunity fired. I wasn't thinking about that. When you're filming, a lot of times your brain isn't thinking all the strategical possibilities, but I just kind of thought, let's just push through. Yeah, great. This is why I'm not a good solo player. I don't normally think of all of that, but if I have an opponent, we're usually talking throughout the whole game and we're reminding each other, oh yeah, you want an opportunity fire? Or you don't say a word, like why would you ask that? But in the rules a lot of times, you know, you have to declare what you're doing, so your opponent who's moving wants to make sure, are you okay that I move here? Are you okay I move here? Are you okay? But when I solo play, I don't ask myself those questions. Maybe I should. Am I okay that I move here? Yeah, you can do that. You can get closer. Alright, so housekeeping, we've kind of cleaned up a little bit. I had no missiles to reload, so we're fine there. Then step 8 is aid and focus phase. Now this is the phase that sometimes new players struggle with a little bit. They're like, what is that? Now, this is an opportunity for you abstractly to represent the big leader on the battlefield. You have an aid marker and a focus marker. Focus marker will let you re-roll dice when you do things like an attack roll, or maybe a morale rally roll would be like this aid marker, but usually combat. Or you could put this focus marker onto the initiative page, and it has two sides. The aid markers and focus markers have a singular dice side and a 2 dice side. So if you wanted, normally these don't start on the board unless there's like a special scenario rule, but what you do is on that first aid and focus phase is you say, well, I want to put this over here on, say, these T-80s, because I'm anticipating some combat that they will be firing in, and I'm going to stick it. And so one of these vehicles that makes an attack roll, it could, if it wanted, spend the focus, the 1 die side, to re-roll its attack die. Or if this was already on the board during your aid and focus phase, I could flip it to the 2. There's actually here an icon with 2 dice. So there'd be 2 dice opportunities to re-roll, if you will. Or I could stick it in the initiative box. That way I could try to maintain initiative, because if I fail the initiative roll, I could use my focus to fix that. So this is kind of the abstract way that your commander is focusing assets on this part of the battlefield. Like, this has to go through. And then aid is the same way. So you always get a rally roll. Like, there's a rally phase, and these Abrams will have chances to rally, but as the American player, I might say, you know what, I really need this Abrams back, or I really want that Abrams back. So I'll take the aid marker, there's a green one, right here, and I'm going to stick that here on that T-80, because he's also reduced. So if he gets hit again, he's out. So I want to try and rally him to kind of keep him alive. And These guys here have a lot of Soviets coming, so we're going to place a focus here because I might want to re-roll one of my combat results. And then the Soviets, they currently don't have anything that needs to be rallied, but since combat's coming up, I'm going to just stick that there in anticipation of combat, and on the next turn get a bonus to rally if they need it. Now the thing is, you don't have to place it. You could hold off. You can move it. Like if it starts here with some stuff, you can move it up to like 3 units away. You know, just think of this as like people in jeeps and whatnot, and they're going around spreading good love of the commander. Also, if all of these units disappear through combat, this would come off the board. The thing is, the aid and focus, they're never captured by your opponent. They're never removed from your side because you will always have people in jeeps that can do things, right? If you kill off a commander, there's always a backup commander. So it just might temporarily be removed from the battlefield, but new people will come out. So we'll just put the aid there. All right, so aid and focus is good. We advance to turn 2. All right, and then we start over with initiative. So I'll grab my 2 fancy dice. And the American player gets initiative again. Again, if I had placed my focus on there, the Soviet player could, if they wanted, possibly re-rolled that to try and, but that's a pretty high. You know, if it had been like the Americans rolled a 2 or a 3, you know, you might say, if I had that focus down there, say, you know what, I bet I could beat that. Let me spin that focus, and haha, I steal the initiative. But as it stands, the American player has initiative. Then we draw action cards. Here we go. So, Soviet player got an ECM. Place an ECM marker on a oh, I'm using some ECMs as disrupted, I think. With place ECM marker on hex or an initiative box with NATO focus marker. Negate focus marker's effect. Yeah, that's actually pretty cool. I can play that at any step. So basically, what I could do is, since I'm putting focus here, I could put an ECM marker, and basically what that's saying is I'm like disrupting their communications, so my commander can't focus there very well. That's a good one. I could play that now. I could find one of those ECM markers I was talking about. Here we go. I'll just grab this one and stick it right there. Boop. So Soviet player plays ECM. This goes as a discard. NATO player drew double time. Increase movement of all units in 1 hex. Double leg movement factor. Add half movement factor. The fire results die to AFV. If targeted by op fire, shift 2 columns to the right. Oh, that's a lot to remember. Well, we'll stick it over here. Alrighty. Then we go to rally phase. Now, again, Soviet player had a nice card to give +1 morale, but since they have no wounded units right now, we won't use that card. The American player has a rally to check. So first, I want to try and get this unit fixed. So we're going to roll my American green die. Remember, their morale is a 4, so if I get a 4 or less, he rallies. If not, I can spin the aid and try to re-roll. Definitely failed. So I'll spend my aid. I'll stick it over there. And they're going to try to get that Abrams in action. And still rolled a 9. Okay, perfect. Not perfect. So, oh, that stays. Well, okay. Then we'll check for that one. And they stay disrupted. Oh, well, it's not with them today. All right. Then we go to the fire phase. Since they're disrupted, they can't fire. They can move in the movement phase if they want to pull back. Because there are some rules to get bonuses to the morale, like if you're in cover, that, you know, some cover that gives you a positive protection, you could get +1 to the morale. And I think you only claim 1. But there's also, if you are out of line of sight, you get +1 to your morale for the roll check. Or if you are in line of sight but out of range, so if I was way across an open field, they can't shoot me, I could get a bonus to rally. But none of those situations apply, so they just rolled poorly. Alright, but we get to shoot. I don't get to spin my focus down here. My Abrams units are down here, so we'll go ahead and start shooting. What we'll do is this stack, and we're going to shoot one of these T-80 platoons over here. So we're going to zoom down here. And let's see, hopefully, yeah, you can see that pretty good. Since the Soviet player was doing ECM, we can't use our focus, so they're disrupting our communication a little bit. So these folks are on their own, they're going to fire. Now because they're together, I could either shoot them individually, so I could have one fire, then my opponent would make an attack, then I'd come back, or I can fire them together. And since I'm shooting a tank unit that I really want to kill, I'm going to go ahead and combine fire them since they're in the same hex, or if they were adjacent. So they're at the same range, so it's 5. I know we checked that, so that means it's normal range for them. So we'll go 14, subtract 8. I'm just going to attack this top platoon. So we know that's on a 6 column, but because I have an additional firer in good order, full strength essentially, I add 2 column shifts. Yeah, pretty much that's it. So I would be 6 2 column shifts. I'm on the 10. So I want to roll low and then subtract 1 from that because Abrams has a -1. So we are on 3. It's a 2. We come all the way over to the 10. 6 potential hits. So it's going to be all of these dice. So it's possible that they will suffer terribly. Now remember, the morale for the Soviets is only a 3. So 0, well, those saved, but then they failed on the 8, 6, and 8. Wow, somewhat lucky, somewhat unlucky. So that unit is destroyed. Now it's not both. We were targeting essentially one unit in there. So this would go through, you know, disrupted, then disrupted, reduced, and then eliminated. So that's out. So that's one T-80, well, I should say another T-80 unit down. I'm going to run out of rec markers here in a second. But we have created instant cover for that T-80. And we now mark the Abrams. And I'm going to put it on the top of that whole stack. So that entire stack is fired. They did their job. Alright, now Soviet player was unhappy with that. We do have here, oh, that's a T-80 with some infantry. They're not going to combine. He can't really do much. Plus, his range for anti-tank is basically adjacent, so they don't have anything anti-tank. And then he can't stack and shoot together. So I have 2 T-80s here. So what we'll probably do is, oh, I should have moved them closer. 1, 2, 3, 4. See, that's the thing. If I was playing like I should with the Soviets and kind of that horde mentality, what I should do is I should have, instead of staying in cover, I need to move up because he's going to be shooting at long range. So we'll take advantage of multiple units firing together, which we'll have to move the map so you can see what I'm talking about here. Yeah, I should have moved those tanks up maybe a little bit more, because that's how I think of the Soviets, is they're moving always. They got to get close. You know, they can't afford to sit back and snipe. So I put them in a position to sit back and snipe, which might not be the best. But with 2 together, they'll make this work. So they have a starting firepower of 12, 8 defense. So they're starting on column 4. However, these 2 units are going to fire together. So first, you apply the bonuses. So we have, starting on column 4, they have a full strength buddy firing with them. So I put them on the 8 column, but because they're long range, they go back to 1, 2, and so we're on the 4. It's better than rolling on the 2. And then they add 1 because the Abrams has a armor bonus, so they're on the 7 column, which no change from the 6. This blue indicates it'd be out of missile ammo, but it's not a missile unit, so we just come over here to the 4, and it's a 1. So the Abrams gets to roll 1 die. If it's a 4, 3, 2, or 1, or 0, they're fine. 6. Wow. We're not doing good. So they were already disrupted, so now they get reduced. So a whole bunch of T-80s are just tearing up the place, and they get marked with fired. Okay, then, just because this is already pretty long, just hanging out watching me play, we'll say fast forward. Gameplay happens. We would move. Same thing. I would then check to see if I want to advance folks. Since they fired, they can't move. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He would be okay shooting here. He would use his high explosive factor, and then yeah, should we maybe try shooting at infantry in the open? It's not close assault. Yeah, okay, so infantry is done a little differently, and this could actually be very bad. So typically, they're going to use this lower left-hand number, which is your high explosive factor, and then there's nothing to subtract. You only modify by the terrain. Well, guess what? There's no modifiers for the open. So this infantry in the open is bad as you would expect. So the T-80 unit is going to shoot a whole bunch of high explosive shells over there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's normal range. So they roll 1 die 6. And it's on the 10 column. And there's no other modifiers. So we go, I rolled a 8. We come across to the 10 column, which is 3. So now we've got to make 3 saves on that infantry unit. So being in the open with infantry is bad. I should think that through next time. Oh look, 2 saves. So they get disrupted. That is very, very lucky for them. And then they would get marked with a fired. Alright, then we would move. So I would, maybe I want to move up. Did I mark them with one of these? I thought fired, but yeah, no, they were close. It was these guys. They can't move. They're within range of 5. Maybe we'll move some other folks around. So we'll go through the movement segment, mark all of those with moved. And again, that's important because if you're doing opportunity fire, then you would know that the unit's already moved. It can't, So markers are good. But I'm not moving a whole bunch, so we'll just leave off the move markers. So let's say we do movement. Then again, we would go back to housekeeping. So I would leave the disrupted because we had to roll to remove that. I would take off all the fire and moved markers. But just out of laziness, I'm not putting all the moved markers at the moment. Then we would do aid and focus again. Now, ECM would also come off. So thank you, ECM. And I would be back here to focus. Now, because I couldn't use this to modify attack rolls that I may or may not have taken, what I'll do is I'll flip that to the 2 dice side. So now, oh, of course you can't see where I'm at. Forgot I pulled the camera away. So down here where I had that electronic countermeasures, I removed that during housekeeping, and then the focus marker was here on the 1 side, so I just flip it to the 2. So hopefully the Soviet player doesn't get any more electronic countermeasures, so I can play that. Then I had my aid and focus marker, which I use. I can place it again now because we're on that step. So I'm going to place it back here on that unit, but on the singular die side because it's coming onto the field fresh. Now the Soviet player, he didn't use his aid either, so he's going to flip that, which you can barely see over here on the edge of the camera. So he's got 2 there now to help with rally checks. And he didn't spin anything on this focus, so he's going to go ahead and put 2 there. Then we advance the turn marker, so I'd put it on a 3. Then we would do an initiative check. Oof. Alright, well, I'll count, that's a 0, so that's like horrible. And the Soviet player gets a 9. So as it stands, Soviet player gets to go first. I don't have a re-roll, so we'll just let Soviet player go first. Then we would draw cards. We'll draw one more set of cards here. What do we got? Okay. For the Motherland, raise the morale of all Warsaw Pact units by 1 for the current turn. So that's another for the Motherland. So we'll put that there. And then the NATO gets an 8 firepower attack. Great. So we would call in our artillery, hit an open spot, make some attacks, check adjacent hexes and things, and we might use that another time. Alright, so we get cards. Then we're back to the rally phase. We'll try and rally again. We'll start with this guy. So I'll just use my green die, the one that rolls really great. Oh, a 0, so he's good. Now, he's going to keep that aid marker here, but in the future, if this guy is not disrupted or anything, I could leave it here, or maybe within 3 hexes move it to another unit, or take it off the table to move it to another side of the table. So for now, that will just stay there. We'll check if he can rally. Nope. And we'll check for that one. Nope. So they're still disrupted. Alright, and then nothing over here was disrupted. Usually when the NATO hits, they don't disrupt, they kill. So, little bravado talk there. Then we go right back into fire phase. And that is without, well, granted, it's been an hour, but I'm hoping what that does is gives you some really good insight into the basics of how this plays. Now, again, some of those things are kind of subtle. Maybe you didn't notice it, or they didn't really come into play. Like, for example, the advanced targeting with the Abrams. So Abrams has advanced targeting, so if they were at long range, they would only suffer like 1 penalty shift instead of 2. So yes, these things are in the game, but they're subtly applied. It's great. It's not overly complicated. So I have missiles. Missiles, you know, can be good, but they're just like any other tool out there, you know. But they have a chance to run out of ammo, you know. But we didn't run out of ammo. We did a good roll. It just wasn't a good enough roll, you know. And then move. You know, it's a war game. Now some folks are saying, but Eddie, where did you put all of the vampires and werewolves? I didn't put them in here. I'm not a huge yet, hoping maybe to become a huge werewolves and vampire fan in my war games. It's there. I love it. It's an option. The rules are really well played out, so it's not like just a cheesy add-on. They are an intricate part of the game if you go that route. But if you're like me, primarily I focus just on traditional non-paranormal military wargaming, and this works just fine. So I hope that gives you some insight. I think I've already said that a couple of times, but hopefully you enjoyed that. And I look forward to your comments and seeing you on the next video. All right, thanks a lot. Bye, everybody.